In the Amazon rainforest, there are still people who've had no contact with the outside world. The last wild people on Earth. This is territory of the Tigeri Indians, one of Ecuador's last uncontacted tribes. They have never been conquered or colonized and never been filmed. They are invisible people. Tigeri live naked and hunt with blowpipes. Their spiritual life evolved over thousands of years, living undisturbed in the forest. In the 1970s, oil was discovered in Ecuador, threatening the land of these last wild people. The cutting edge of our industrial society grinds its way into the Amazon wilderness, building an oil road, heading towards Tigeri territory. Every consumer plays their part in driving this machine, and it never stops moving. These Irani Indians are neighbours of the Tigeri. They were also uncontacted until oil was discovered in their territory little more than 20 years ago. Before contact, the Irani were invisible people, and in many ways they're still unseen, because like most of the world's indigenous people, they've been treated as though they don't exist. Their ancestral land was resumed by the state of Ecuador and opened up for oil extraction. Their spiritual beliefs were quashed by the church, and they were taught to feel shame for being naked. And their finely tuned forest culture was treated as a relic, a curiosity. Ecuador is a poor country, more than $20 billion in debt, and oil promised a windfall for the struggling economy. In the 70s, US petroleum giant Texaco carved a 120-kilometre road, which they called the Via Auca, the Savage Road, into the heart of Irani territory. Irani only have surface rights to their territory, so these concessions allow petroleum companies to build infrastructure and extract oil wherever they find it. The rainforest is becoming a patchwork of oil roads, extraction sites, holding ponds, storage tanks, supply depots and pipelines. In the haste to extract oil, concern for the environment and indigenous people came last. Over 70 million litres of crude oil and billions of litres of toxic brine have spilled into the headwaters of the Amazon, and the health of the indigenous people is being affected. When an oil road opens up the rainforest, poor colonists and speculators from other regions quickly follow, taking over the land. They practice slash and burn agriculture, cutting down and burning all the trees, planting quick crops and ranching cattle. The exposed topsoil erodes and washes down the river. Within a few years, the soil is depleted, the farmers still poor, and the forest gone. As a result, a quarter of Ecuador's Amazon rainforest has already been destroyed. An Australian, Doug Ferguson, came to the Amazon to soften the impact on Ecuador's indigenous people and their world. Doug has helped 3 different tribes secure their ancestral territory and helped preserve over 1 million hectares of rainforest, more than anyone else on Earth.
In all these projects and processes, I believe we've helped to create a more just society and address some of the problems that are happening. But I don't believe that anything as such is saved. And I think that that thinking is really mistaken now. It's not that we can save this forest, save this tree, or save this animal. Really, it's one green earth or a bowl of dust. And so it's a whole realm of consciousness, a whole level of being that has to be changed. And that's what I'm working for.
Many people see our planet as a living organism. The Amazon Basin has been described as a lungs and gene bank, containing half of the Earth's plant and animal species. It holds 1/5 of the world's fresh water, increasing atmospheric moisture, affecting global weather patterns, and stabilising global warming. Ecuador is right on the equator. The spine of the Andes Mountains divides the coastal region from the Amazon Basin. These eastern flowing rivers are the headwaters of the mighty Amazon. The Irani, or fierce people as they became known, lived in small groups and survived for thousands of years in the forest, hunting, gathering, and engaged in small-scale cultivation. Rifles and bullets have replaced blowpipes and cost big money for people with little cash. They kill more monkeys and make more noise, changing the finely tuned balance of life under the rainforest canopy. Amazon Indians have a strong tradition of spiritual practice, led by their tribal shaman. Shamans are healers, magicians, and spiritual mediums, using psychoactive plant potions like ayahuasca to evoke a trance state. In trance, the shamans access ancestral wisdom and knowledge of the plant and animal kingdom, seeking visions and direction for their people, building bridges between worlds. Mingatui is a Irani jaguar shaman who spent the first half of his life uncontacted by the outside world. As a child, he says he lived with the pride of jaguars, who passed on to him much of the shamanic knowledge he has today. Mingatui says the Jaguar spirit still communicates through him to advise the Irani about problems within their territory. Doug Ferguson is a kind of modern-day shaman who also builds bridges between worlds. Doug is a visionary, working for a sustainable future for the Earth. And he uses the wizardry of new technologies to network the planet for the right people and funding agencies to help the indigenous people. In the 1980s, on the other side of the Pacific Ocean in Australia, Doug had what he calls his moment on the mountain. A group of activists involved in the struggle to preserve Australian rainforests from logging had a connection with the earth that changed their lives forever.
Irani Creek and Mount Nardian on the mountain was like a dispersal of seed for quite a big group of people and for a unique group of people who got hurled out there by that vision. It was like the reawakening of the dreaming, and this was the site, this was the planetary site to call forth those ceremonies. And in the ceremonies and the processes that I've participated in since, I feel the integrity of that, you know, of what that was as a planetary awakening point, and I feel the integrity of our actions through. So that moment on the mountain is still going on, you know.
People from this forest action went to work for the environment in different parts of the world, from Sarawak to India, the United States to Siberia. In 1986, after his success in forest action in Australia, Doug was invited to Ecuador by the Ecuadorian government to help coastal Indians demarcate the boundary of their tribal land. With the help of other environmentalists, Doug established a branch of the Australian Rainforest Information Centre, known as SIPT. Doug calls himself a light worker, part of a global network of people working for greater awareness of themselves, the environment, and the plight of Indigenous people. He's a kind of barefoot diplomat, liaising with government, oil companies, the military, and the Indians.
Really, in all the work that we've been doing here in Ecuador and everywhere that we've worked, we've left a centre, or we're still working and creating centres, and I believe that those centres offer an alternative paradigm. I believe, I have faith, that my counterparts are in motion all around the earth, and bit by bit we're creating a network, almost in the way that mushrooms recreate. If you've ever seen mushrooms in a box, you leave them for a while and all of a sudden there's a filament of light between all the spores, and then one day you open the box and it's full of mushrooms. And I think that that's what we're doing. We're creating a light network around the earth, and that every centre that we establish is an alternative paradigm.
It's dangerous challenging state, corporate and tribal interests in the developing world. And Doug walks a fine line. His life has been threatened, he's been imprisoned, and is constantly under threat of deportation. Doug doesn't just save rainforest, he lives in it. He built a home in the Amazon with the Quechua people. Doug's wife Martha is the daughter of a tribal shaman, and they have 2 children together with a vast extended family. Doug's father-in-law is Casimiro Mamiacta, 8th generation guardian of the sacred Galeras mountain and a powerful and revered shaman.
Esa ayahuasca se llama, ayahuasca. Es para curar, para alimentar para los cuerpos, para los bichos, para todo, etc. Ambingue, córame, con este vamos para tomar mi cuerpo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 personas, digamos 5 tocos, para 10 personas para tomar esto. Voy a cortar, ya, ambingue, vamos. Ya.
Shamans of the Amazon have used ayahuasca, the vision vine, in healing rites and vision quests, and to pass on ancestral knowledge to initiates.
Y tomar, se prepara cortando y se cocina y se toma. Antes de tomar tienes que pensar las cosas que tú vas a ver. Si se asoma así pasa como películas, es bueno. Tú quieres venir, regresar a otro mundo, vienes otra vez. Es muy sagrada esta planta. Es antiguamente los viejos tomaban para ver o adivinar cualquier cosa. Inventa. Ñuka, kanda, erikuna monan. Shami, kaima, espíritu, Shami.
There is a legend that long ago, 2 brothers trapped a giant jaguar in one of the vast limestone caves of Galeras, the Jaguar Mountain. Some believe when the end of the world is near, the giant jaguar will escape and devour all offending humanity. Others believe the giant jaguar has already escaped in the form of the oil companies, and their world is being destroyed. The Irani ancestral territory has been reduced to 1/3 of its original size. The colonists who came along the Via Auca cut a 35,000 hectare, 16-kilometre wide swathe through the heart of the remaining Irani land.
Mono ba tere me wa aken ara mawi ka ara mai ni ba nyo wa ate tere ko apore nyo me na mono tere tres yo na me ma kuma iran ma ni be mono yo mo tere ka tan kumini ba kuma ate o ki anga uyenga awi ka wa iran mono me korones siwara tiran de tra de nyo mongo.
Until contact, the Irani really were fierce people. More than half the population would die a violent death, killed by raiding parties and intertribal warfare.
Venía antes era así, habíamos, venía así, como era plano, venía hasta Perú, aquí, bajada, subida, dos pájaros, y los lomas.
To Native Americans, first contact with the outside world has usually meant sickness and death, and the rapid loss of their land and culture. The Irani became locked in fierce and deadly battles, defending their territory from outsiders. Many oil workers and missionaries were speared during these early encroachments into Irani land. The military and the missionaries pacified the Irani and corralled them into a Christian mission protectorate on the edge of their land. With the Irani confined, oil extraction in their territory began in earnest. A new generation is growing up without the hunting and survival skills of their parents. The Irani are losing their finely tuned relationship with the natural world. This mission protectorate is a sort of halfway house, as the Irani gradually take their place in their impoverished version of the modern world.
El presidente del Guarani jamás no tiene que coger así, sino que Guarani mismo.
Traditionally, Irani lived in small clan groups spread through the rainforest and didn't have a single leader. But they've been asked to choose a president from one of these candidates in their first ever election. This means the oil company and officials only have to negotiate with one person. Irani leaders are usually given gifts and cash by the oil companies and are then expected to do the company's bidding. The Irani community is split between factions wanting to embrace the religion and lifestyle of the New World and others wanting to retain some of their traditional beliefs and culture. A young chief, Moi Enamenga, took a leading role in the struggle for the future of his people. Along with several other groups, Moi left the mission protectorate and its strict Christian control to re-establish new villages in traditional territory.
El tigre porta así, unos 1 metro y más o menos. Es son grandes porque siempre anda buscando los animales ríos. Siempre come cuando encuentra.
The Irani heard about Sip's work, helping a coastal tribe, and they asked Doug to help them establish legal title to their land and to cut a demarcation line around their border to keep out colonists. The colonists are mostly poor farmers from the coastal regions of Ecuador. The demarcation line is a 4-metre wide clearing, hundreds of kilometres long.
But the line's very distinct. I don't know, you've probably got some film of it. You can see that no one can mistake this as a boundary, a straight line in the jungle. And not only that, it's the accepted manner in jungle areas, at least that I know of in Ecuador, of establishing your land title, whether it's a 50-hectare colonised block or, in this case, a 670,000 hectare tribal boundary.
They plant the demarcation line with palm trees to form a living fence, a permanent boundary for their territory.
for the Irani it's been a major victory and a continuation of their struggle, which has been over 100 years from when the rubber came through this region against the petroleros, the colonisation, missionaries and everything else. So this is the continuation for them of a long struggle, and hopefully this will establish once and for all their legal boundaries.
Nosotros no queremos destruir gente porque que respeta. Todo para ese territorio que estamos liderando, que respeta. Y todas las autoridades, sea militares, sea gente que respeta. Es único, mantenemos este límite que no habla más futuros y más internacionales, nacionales, que no habla más Irani, porque aquí somos Irani para hablar derecho, nuestra vida, nuestra para decir todo el mundo.
The cutting of the demarcation line along this area has really been complicated a lot by threats of violence from the colonisers and also from the Irani themselves. And this has been even more complicated because a lot of the colonisers are really Shuar indigenous people who come from a totally different province. In fact, recently there was an outbreak here of violence and 3 Shuar were speared to death by angry Irani.
Viendo control aquí como control militar, así somos los guerreros, los viejos, para que defienda. Que si entra aquí tenemos que respetar como esa nuestra lanza.
The outboard motor is a gift to Moy from an oil company. It costs many years' wages in Ecuador. When it needs serious maintenance, it will cost far too much for Moy to afford. The oil companies are constantly involved in the process of gift giving to woo the Irani people, who don't understand the concept of greed and deception. To them, it's all part of the harvest. The dynamite was a gift from an oil exploration camp. The blast kills every fish in the waterhole. For the Irani, it means they eat more fish tonight, but conserving natural resources is a foreign concept to them. Each one of these technical innovations have long-term effects on the Irani's lives and environment. Catapulting them straight into the cash economy and a money-dependent world.
Y después cuando llueves, así se va creciendo, ¿no? Está llevando agua y los contamina el río y mueren muchos animales, y lo que familia murieron hace 20 años, mucha gente porque enfermedades no teníamos salud, ¿no? Y
American author and environmental lawyer Judith Kimmerling has tried to sue Texaco to clean up the contaminated streams and hundreds of toxic waste pits that they've left in the Amazon.
This is where they dump the liquid waste. Now, these wastes contain toxic levels of salts, they contain petroleum and heavy metals. And they just dump them onto this open pit. It's an unlined pit. You can see the banks are stained with petroleum. And from there, it's being pumped into an outfall pipe which flows directly into a small stream, which then flows to the Shiripuna River. The people in Yoneno are very concerned about this. This is something I think that they hadn't seen before. They've seen the river run black with petroleum sometimes, but this is a constant discharge. This is a 24-hour day discharge, which is not accidental, it's routine, it's planned, it's designed to operate this way, and it's a serious problem. You can see globules of petroleum. Bastante, ¿eh? Ustedes tomen, ¿ya? El río, lavan, río, ustedes lavan, bañan, toman. Amal.
Amal, sí. Púrpura.
There's always a risk of oil spills, no matter how careful you are, no matter how modern the technology, no matter how well maintained, there's always a risk of spills.
The oil companies don't practice the environmental protection measures they're obliged to in the developed world. Instead of re-injecting toxic brine, a polluting byproduct of oil drilling, back under the ground, they just run it into the river system, millions of litres a day. Hydrocarbons and heavy metals enter the food chain. The whole ecosystem is affected, including the health of the Irani. The US oil company, Maxis, built an oil access road penetrating 200 kilometres through Irani territory into the adjoining Yasuni National Park, a biosphere reserve listed by the United Nations. These Irani in Ecuador's capital, Quito, are demonstrating against the construction of the Maxis Road through their territory. Hundreds of Irani have come to the centre of the city to protest outside Maxis headquarters.
Y también otro lado, como el extranjero del Banco Mundial, el compañero Marzo, son poderes, son fuerza, porque nuestra ley no podemos, porque es pequeño país gubernamental, hablan cerca porque es país pobre, pero derecha reclamamos naturaleza, porque aquí vivimos riqueza, por eso paramos nosotros que respeta el gobierno internacional lo que viene extranjeros, y así está contaminando lados de enfermedades de salud, porque destruye el mundo.
Half of Ecuador's population is indigenous, and there is a begrudging recognition of the demands of these Amazon people. The oil company complained to the government about being publicly embarrassed by the demonstration and ended up paying a cash gift to the Irani. But the road still went through.
I take a lot of pride in my company and the way we've set up to do this project. I'm an environmentalist myself, but if you weigh the economics, if you weigh the process by which we're doing this, it's definitely a plus for Ecuador. You know, and granted there will be some impact on the Waorani, but we're doing everything we can to let them seek their own destiny and keep their own ways wherever possible.
After national and international protests failed to stop the Maxis Road, the Irani staged a blockade.
Después vinieron militares y estaba mucho carro, teníamos nosotros y tumbado palo para que no pase carro. Después comienza a disparar militares, decir, eso es de frontera casi era, pero ahora era enojado y más clavo, tenía fuerza lanza, entonces no podíamos permitir que pasaran militares. Entonces así dispararon aire, después teníamos problemas con ellos, porque no es frontera. Entonces ahora dijeron, no pueden permitir que entre militares. Entonces a ese momento salieron y nosotros retiramos también los armamentos, se fueron llevando y nosotros ahí teníamos lanza. Entonces como no estaba presente indígena, hasta eso un poco como vista más o menos de los dirigentes de ONAI, dijeron, Max, toma esa plata, esa cantidad por supuesto 95, entonces no hablaron más.
It's also important to continually expand your vision and your understanding of what's happening. I know in a lot of what's being expressed here in this film, in the story, it seems that we've had an antagonistic role against the petrol industry, and at a certain level I guess that's true. But myself, I can see that without that petrol-based economy and the processes and the technology that came out of that, perhaps we wouldn't have been able to unite the planet in the way that's happening now. So as my vision expands, I don't see the world in terms of good or evil. I don't think that understanding serves us anymore. I think as we heal the separation, we bring the polarities together, we move more into a process of union, of oneness, that we are just one being. I don't think it serves us anymore to maintain an antagonism, to have the good guys, to have the bad guys. None of this serves us anymore.
Some groups are calling for a 10-year moratorium on all road building and oil activities in Waorani territory to give them a chance to adapt to the massive changes they're experiencing. Now the Waorani are part of the cash economy, they have to think of ways to make money. They've used theft and extortion, stealing goods from the oil company and extorting cash from tourists. They charge a couple of dollars at toll gates for trucks crossing their territory. Anything to get some cash. Instead of hunting just to feed themselves, the Waorani are taking wild animals from their territory to bring in some extra cash. This baby sloth fetches $100 on the black market, sold to a zoo or private collector. To help Indigenous people earn money, Doug has helped the Waorani and Quechua people establish ecotourism. Certain rituals and dances are performed for tourists, which helps keep customs alive. Ecotourism is kind to the environment and gives Indigenous people some financial independence. attempt to deal with the continuing destruction of the Amazon rainforest and unsustainable land use, SIPT is running permaculture courses. Permaculture is based on ideas developed by another Australian, Bill Mollison, who created this sustainable farming technique by observing natural ecosystems. Permaculture is an agricultural system which enables people to completely feed themselves, breaking their dependence on money. It can be established on small plots of land, reducing the need to continually clear new areas of rainforest. These courses are attended by military, government officials, colonists, petrol company employees, and the Indians.
Of course, there's nothing really new about sustainable farming, and this has been the basis of traditional societies the world over for many thousands of years. What I believe is it's the separation that we've all experienced that truly has to be healed. I don't believe that we can fix the world project by project.
Lake Pannacotta is a beautiful and untouched lake and swamp system abounding in wildlife.
We, as an organisation, we isolated this region and brought it to the government's attention, and after one of our permaculture courses where we invited government members to participate, we took them down to Pannacotta and they were astounded by the beauty of the place, and through working together with the government in that way, with the INAFAN, with the Forestry Division, we were able to gazette this place 54,000 hectares of lagoon system as a government reserve, and we believe that this area is a very important breeding ground for the pink Amazon dolphin, which is in danger of extinction.
But even this new reserve is under threat. Occidental Petroleum USA have employed a company to begin seismic testing for oil, and another road is going in.
The threat is the threat of a road that's been planned by the government to come through. One of them is the joining of the petrol road and another's like a service road, and there could be 2 more roads built in this region.
The Ecuadorian government intends doubling oil production over the next few years, a lot of it from the territory of indigenous tribes and from national parks and reserves. Pannacotta is home to yet another uncontacted tribe, a subclan of the Irani, another group of invisible people. The military and the Irani are empowered by government to use whatever force necessary to stop inquisitive outsiders. But apart from the oil companies, the greatest threat to the Tageri are old tribal disputes with neighbouring Irani. The Tageri have heard about the outside world and know what the effects of contact will be. They've made it known that they want to stay independent and will fight to the death to defend their sovereignty. The Tageri are the custodians of their piece of the Amazon. When they fall, the rainforest falls with them. Canadian Randy Smith is an author and environmentalist working with SIPT. Randy and Doug are working to prevent any penetration into Tageri land.
He's been setting up an eco-tourist process to give the Irani an independent access to the cash economy, so they're not so able to be manipulated by the petrol companies. And this project is strategically set up in this place to monitor any activities that happen with or could endanger in any way the Tageri people.
As of now, I guess Tageri territory is probably the only area in all Ecuador that hasn't had any seismic lines or oil exploration done into it. It's like pure, pristine, virgin jungle, as it has been for thousands of years, and no one goes in but the Tageri. If you walk 2 days distance down that way to the right of us is where the Tageri live right now. The Tageri are a tribe of about 50 people divided into 2 groups. that that refuse any contact with the outside world, including other Wadani.
The area here is a real hotspot. The Jungle Brigade number 19, they've come to give us a hand here to inspect the process of colonisation, because what we're trying to do is to form a buffer zone, a 4 to 5 kilometre buffer zone between the colonisers and the place where the Tagaeri live.
So we went down with 8 soldiers. We went down to find out which how many colonists lived in the area close to the Tagaeri. And fortunately, we found out none lived there.
The Tagaeri are fierce, willing to fight and die to be left alone. And the lives of both the colonists and Tagaeri are at risk. When 2 missionaries were airlifted into Tagaeri territory, their bodies were found the next day with 115 spear wounds.
Entonces tienen que entender su situación, porque aquí ha sido gente ancestrales que han vivido muchos años, que tienen sus propios derechos de vivir aquí en la selva. Entonces esa gente han sobrevivido por su propia fuerza una guerra intensa apuntado a la extinción de ellos para 100 años. Pero cada grupo de personas tiene una cosa en común, ellos quieren vivir con tranquilidad y en la paz.
Perdido casi, pero sí tenemos fuerza. Ya es reconocido el Estado y todo el país. Justicia en Ecuador no, porque lo que hablamos acerca de Tagaeri, en todo Ecuador protegemos con ellos. Con ellos tenemos más fuerza, poder, leyes.
When we think of the Tagaeri, those last wild people out there, for me they're very important. They hold a very special place in human consciousness. To really acknowledge yourself, at some level you have to be able to acknowledge that indigenous connection. And when I say indigenous, of course we're all indigenous. We're all indigenous on this earth. We're all indigenous in this universe. But to acknowledge the people who've lived for 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 years in the same place, through those precarious threads of existence, the bloodlines, the songlines, the gathering, the fine-tuned harvest of the food chain, all those things. If you can't truly acknowledge those people as living light workers on the planet, it's very hard to acknowledge yourself. The threads that bind us are very fine and very subtle. And I believe that the last wild people are a living expression of that reality. For me, I don't really see myself as a forest saver or a permaculturalist or any of those things. The truth is I've never had another job except working for the earth in this manner. I've been doing this for the last 15 years. I believe what my job has been, what my role has been, or what my process has been here in Ecuador is to hold the doors open and to create a space in an impossible situation so that all of these things can be possible. it's not really a race against time. There's not a D-Day, there's not a day when all of a sudden everything will fall apart and the world will be destroyed. It's between now and forever.
Doug wrote a preface to Randy Smith's book, Crisis Under the Canopy. If these people do not remain bound together as a cultural entity, there will be no one to defend what remains of the Amazon. Neither extraction of raw materials nor anthropological curiosity should be allowed to disturb these people. If they themselves seek contact with the larger society, it would be another matter. The ever-expanding industrial society may prove to be the monster which will one day devour us all. In the meantime, writes Doug, may the dreaming guide our footsteps, and may our footsteps guide the dreaming.
Invisible people. Your feathers are curled. Invisible people. Stay in your homes. Don't walk on the edge of the world. Invisible people. Invisible people. Invisible. Invisible. Invisible.